Hi, welcome to another episode of Through the Web with me, Dagogo.
And me, Tawsif.
And today we're going to talk all things technology. It's going to sound like an AI intro. No, we're just going to talk about some various topics, including some very exciting news for me.
Yes.
Which we'll get to shortly. So
let's just go straight into it.
Okay, all right. So I've been a long time Windows user. Long time meaning all my life. And today, this afternoon, I pressed the purchase button on a MacBook Pro. M2 Max model, maxed out. And I'm excited, but a little nervous. Haven't used Mac OS. Gonna have to transfer all my programs, but you know, the speed and the power, portability, battery life I'm gonna get from this will just be immense. So
huge week for you. $4 million.
New laptop.
The new laptop.
Yeah. $4 million, the new laptop, yeah.
Which one are you more excited about?
That's a good question. $4 million is pretty exciting.
Yeah, isn't it?
That is pretty exciting.
Because you only hit 3 just last year.
Yeah, just last year I hit 3. And then a few days ago, like 3 days ago, I hit 4. And then I'm already 4.1.
So the target is 5 by the end of this month.
Yeah, at this current rate, yeah. And I have no idea why this is happening, but I'm very grateful, not complaining at all.
Yeah.
So this MacBook is going to replace my dying Dell XPS 15, which it's unbelievable. Like the battery lasts like an hour, right? And that's not even doing editing. That's
How old is it?
2016.
Wow. I don't think it's that surprising, man.
No, but the thing is, I replaced the battery.
Okay.
So the battery was swelling, the initial one from the factory. So the mouse pad wasn't clicking and everything and looked horrible. So took it into a repair shop, got the battery replaced. And the battery was okay. But then within 3 months, it had gone back to an hour's, capacity. So it's just useless at the moment. So I just needed something to replace that. And I think this laptop's going to be more powerful than my desktop, which is,
Say something, yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, exciting times.
I mean, what are you going to, I guess, are you going to completely replace your desktop then? Like, will this be your one and only device for everything?
Now, that's a good question because my desktop, it will still come in handy for some things, I think. But this will start to encroach on a lot of what the desktop can do. So I plan to, because I have a home office set up. So I plan to just like take things a bit more mobile and, just work in different environments and that kind of stuff. I think it should work out like to be.
Have you done that before? I mean, are you like, in terms of having a mobile kind of setup where you're kind of portable with your laptop in the streets or in like libraries and stuff? Just put your headphone on and just as Brayden's doing right now, just in a remote kind of area where he's editing.
I used to do that. Yeah, when my laptop used to work properly, I used to be able to work.
And you're okay in doing that? Like,
yeah. I used to do it when I was traveling and stuff, and it was just really cool to be able to do. I think it's quite freeing, that feeling. So I hope to do that.
What's your day-to-day like in terms of consumption of content or media? Like, because you said you have a home office setup, do you only use it for work and then you have like a play laptop or a computer or play for you, I guess, is watching YouTube or is that on your TV or on your phone?
Yeah, completely separate. So I only do work on this computer, on my desktop. And I always watch YouTube on my TV. Right. So they're completely
So
separate.
only on your TV?
Yes.
Wow, not on your phone or not on the PC?
Sometimes I listen to the audio of YouTube when I'm just about to go to bed. Yep. But that's about it. Like when I'm home, it's always on my TV. So it's just better. There's no, if you have a smart TV, I think that's just the way to go.
Yeah, true. For me, I feel I've always struggled to do remote work when it comes to editing. So when it comes to editing, like creative stuff, I feel like I always need to have like a space of my own that's designated, that's mine, that's just free of clutter, free of outside forces kind of situation. So if I'm out in the public and still have my headphones on, I think I would be able to get into that flow state a little bit, but then it won't be as productive as doing it in a designated space in my home or somewhere else that I have set up. Right. So
I guess, I kind of get sick of that a little bit. So I'm looking forward to like getting out. It's probably going to be a bit of both, but for music production though, like this is going to be crazy because working out in the open in different places while making music is like the best thing.
Yeah.
Because you just get that visual input of just stuff going around and it's just, it's nice.
But how do you do that in terms of actually producing? Like maybe perhaps for inspiration or maybe the first draft of things. But say you're out on, I don't know, Scarborough Beach and you've got your laptop out and you're like pushing in like a really cool sub bass element. Like, would you be able to do that on a track?
There's no difference. Like if you just have good headphones, then you'll be able to mix. You'll be able to
like
do
no
everything.
seagulls or anything will distract you from doing.
You could just use the laptop microphone, record the ambience, and put it in the track. No, but like usually all my headphones are like noise isolating, so you can't really hear anything else. So it's pretty fine. And I made some of my earlier stuff. I made it at airports, just wherever. Just like it was fine.
Cool. Well, on the note of sound, have you seen the new Sony Walkman? High res.
Yeah, I actually, when I was in Melbourne, was it in Melbourne? No, actually, it was like a couple of weeks ago. I just happened to stumble across that.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time they did it.
No.
Was it? Yeah. So, well, obviously 1979, but I mean, that was a more recent one. But I think, I'm kind of in the demographic of someone that would like that kind of thing. I think I've talked about this. A separate portable music player is right down my alley. But I think the price was quite
because it's a high-res audio player that they have done in the past. In the latest model that they launched, I think it's gold-plated. It looks quite sleek, the way they've presented on the video and the trailer. I think the most expensive version of it is, I think, goes for Australian dollar 5,000. Yeah. So
what's the capacity?
I'll have to read through that stuff.
Okay.
But essentially, it's really for people who love their sound.
Well, look,
audiophiles.
Yeah, I'm going to go out and say it, and I'm going to say that price isn't just for the audio quality, because you can get that on some phones which are a fraction of. If you're talking about high quality like DACs and stuff like that, I think it's just a status symbol mixed with nostalgia.
You reckon? Like say, would your status symbol really drastically change in owning that piece of technology?
I got to see it, but can you see the gold?
Yeah. I'll show it to you.
If you can see,
that's kind of how it looks like.
Okay, yes, you can see the gold, but I don't know. I guess it depends if it becomes popular enough and iconic enough that people can look at it and recognize it. But there's got to be some element to that.
But for audiophiles, there's always been expensive ways to listen to music or consume music, right? I've heard the Bose and the Sonys that we get. Those are not really for audiophiles, even though they're expensive and they go off as like a status symbol and noise cancellation and all that kind of stuff. But audiophiles have a whole different genre of headphones.
They want flat balance. But the thing is, I'm not talking about the Sony Walkman in general being a status symbol. I'm talking about just specifically the gold-plated one. I think you're not paying just for the audio quality with that.
Got it.
Yeah. But very interesting. We'll see how the sales do. Is it out yet, or is it?
It's going to start pushing out in April, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, I guess Sony kind of does need the money from the portable electronics business. I think it's not doing too great.
But nostalgia would be quite high for sure for some.
Yeah. So is it Android based or?
No, I think it's a whole separate custom thing in and of itself.
But it's just music.
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a space for it.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like I said, audiophiles just love spending money on stuff like that. But today's show is actually very close to the last recording that we did, which is Friday. And the reason being, we have the Australia Day that's coming up, and it's usually closed. Things are closed up around this area, even though it's a Thursday. But I think just overall, people just like to take it slow around here. So we just had to do one before that period kicks in, just in advance. So the last one just came out yesterday, and this one is going to come out next week. But in terms of public holidays, that made me think the signs of public holidays in terms of how they're usually set up. I feel that there's a direct correlation in terms of general societal happiness and well-being to how public holidays are lined up in which parts of the year. So if there are more public holidays during summertime, for example, then people look more towards spending time away and planning their holidays. Because for us, it's in December when you get that Christmas period. And then straight off the bat, you've got the January in Australia, where it's Australia Day. And then we have the Easter break coming up. Then you've got, I think, the Anzac Day. And then the latter half of the year, there's nothing. And that's kind of kicks off from the winter period, all the way till December. And I feel there's a correlation to how people not just interact, but just the way they feel about stuff. And I found this in speaking to others who I guess have jobs that rely on public holidays to get days off. And that's most people anyway. And for us, it doesn't make a difference because we work on days that are public holidays or not. But yeah, I just thought if there was a scientific study that did that, that'd be pretty cool.
It probably is. But so let me try and see like your point more clearly. So you're saying that there's a correlation between the times of the year that these public holidays are grouped around and the happiness and behavior of people. So are you saying that if there was more public holidays grouped around the winter period, that people will feel better then?
I guess, again, it depends for Australia. It's a bit different because if it's winter here, it's summer elsewhere. So people would tend to go out probably in Europe and other parts of the year, right? More so than other parts of the year. But for rest of the world, it's probably different as well. I think there's something to say about how people behave during these periods of time. And at least there's a lot of people who look forward to these kind of periods. And then when they're gone, they're like, oh, they have to wait for another 6 months for the next public holiday. I've picked it up with, from conversations from many different people. And I've always found it interesting as to how a lot of these public holidays, obviously there's the cultural and religious significance. Obviously you can't really move the Christmas Day, for example. But few other public holidays I think are a bit arbitrary. Like the, say, Western Australia Day, for example, or the Queen's birthday. Like, it's celebrated in different times of the year in different parts of Australia. Mm-hmm. So things like that. Yeah. I think there's probably a thought process behind these decisions. And I'd love to know why they do it. It's probably more so economic spending and all that kind of stuff comes to play.
There's probably a lot of work done on this.
Yeah.
But the reasons I'm not actually entirely sure of. But
I think the reasons would probably be easier to find, but I'd love to know the impact of it, of how people behave around them, and like maybe traveling and all that kind of stuff. So that'd be just something very random. I thought while I was thinking about.
We've become the government policy national holiday.
The anthropologists that the internet deserves, but don't have one yet. Or maybe they do. We just don't know them. Anything you watched in this short period of time, I guess, since we last recorded our episode?
Few days. Unfortunately, not really. I don't think I really watched that much. That was striking. I did see something about slapping contest.
So did I. That's also on my list.
Yes, that has made some big headlines. I think it's ridiculous.
It is.
I think it's really ridiculous. Some of those impacts can have real damage on the human body. So I don't know. Apparently there's a TV show that's being started only about slapping. And
I think it's called the Power Slap Championships or something. And
right.
It's I think UFC, or the CEO of UFC, Dana White. I think he owns the whole franchise, or he started the whole franchise anyway.
Right. And it's just people, I guess, competing for maybe a cash prize or something, but just literally putting their brains on the line.
Yeah, the videos that I saw. In fact, I watched the videos as well of them coming out in terms of the slappingness of things and just the way the impact caused them to react. Essentially, was in some ways it's even a bit traumatizing to even witness. It's this human being just on the floor and almost having a seizure in a lot of cases. So yeah, not a fun thing by any means. I don't know how it got approved and how it's okay, because the whole impact's literally in your, like, on your head. And I don't know how they're getting away with it, to be fair.
I guess maybe some bribes behind the scenes. I don't know, but like it's just it's pretty wild. And I think that maybe people will kind of make a bit of a fuss, because I don't think a lot of people knew about this, but because of this controversy, now it's kind of popping off, and maybe there'll be something done. But
Yeah, because with the UFC and boxing and everything, I think the argument is that you can defend yourself, and even after that, there's so many cases of long-term brain injuries or head injuries that so many of these fighters and athletes go through years and years after, right? So for a sport that is literally centered around smacking your opponent in their heads and with that much power, just doesn't make any sense to me.
So I wonder, like, if there's a government body for sports overall, because I know, like, in American football, there's been some changes to the rules, with head injury, all these head injuries and all this kind of stuff. So I wonder if there's like a governing body that can.
I don't think there's one that does just for sport overall, not that I know of. Right. The only name that kind of comes in mind is Laureus, but I think that's more so in giving awards. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. At least I don't know of them. But even in football and soccer, they had that rule where if a player gets hit on the head or is down holding their head, then the game has to stop immediately. Any other injury, then the play can go on. But anything to do with the head, they have to stop it.
But also, no blood on the field as well, right?
Yeah, those things like that. But obviously, the head injuries is a big one. And it was just shocking to see how they kind of went ahead with it regardless. It's funny because the first video I saw was of a bearded guy.
I saw that one.
That one as well. Yeah. And the whole time I was thinking, and this is before I saw the slap come, right? And the whole time I was thinking, I saw this thing, and I don't know how true this is. Obviously, we'll have to fact check, or somebody in the comment section can do that for us. But essentially, people who have beards, like facial hair more so, apparently it's because evolutionary, those who used to be warriors used to have more beards, so to lessen the impact on the combats, and that's why women also don't have it, and I mean less women have it, and a lot of men who don't have it didn't have ancestors who were warriors. And I was thinking the entire time, maybe that is true, because when he got hit, but it wasn't as impactful as somebody who wouldn't have a face full of beard. So
it's an interesting theory, but I don't know. Like, are you saying, or is this theory saying that somehow genetics knows if your ancestors, well, like I guess. Your ancestors were getting beaten up so much that your DNA decided to protect yourself.
Essentially, they would keep, facial hair in order to lessen the impact, and that gets passed on in terms of.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, okay. And I guess the human evolution adapts to.
Wait, no, it doesn't make sense. They'll keep facial hair, but it doesn't mean they couldn't grow it. So like it's kind of like. Everyone would have had facial hair, but the warriors kept it. But it doesn't mean that their children are going to have beards now because they didn't shave.
Yeah, like I said, I have to fact check this.
No, but I just thought it was, anyway. It's a good story.
Yeah, it is a good story. Makes me feel good that maybe
I got to grow mine out again. But it's probably true. Like, I'm sure there's a little bit of cushioning here, but it didn't help that guy. Like, his face was like swollen. So everyone out there, go check out... I think it was, what's his name, Moist Critical. He did a video called Everyone is Talking About This Slap. Yeah. And it's wild. It's
just on that note as well, do you follow UFC at all? So I was, do you, Brayden? Do you watch UFC?
No, I didn't follow it specifically.
Right. So I was getting coffee at our usual coffee spot, just, right there. And the person who was waiting in front of me, just two guys, right? And I was just looking at them, they looked like quite... they had like well-maintained bodies and stuff, and so much so to the point where I was just actually admiring one of the guys, right, in terms of just the way he had built himself, right? And you could see like he looked like a very strong person. And I was like, oh, okay, like, it's probably, and it had like gears and stuff around him, right? So I was like, oh, okay, maybe they just came from, I don't know, some sort of lesson around here, and then just grabbing a coffee and stuff. And then another guy joins in, and he had like a T-shirt on that said UFC, and on top it said Team Makhachev. And then I looked it up, and basically the guy that I was admiring, he's like the current lightweight champion of the world, and he's in Perth playing a match. And obviously I don't follow UFC as much, but I guess that's how strong it was that it actually caught my eye.
Yeah. So, and that's the lightweight.
That's lightweight,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's crazy.
But yeah, just thought I would bring that little personal story
Yeah,
in
there
with the
you
whole
go.
UFC side of things.
There you go.
I guess those who watch UFC you probably know him.
Right.
better.
Yeah, well, if it's the number one, yeah, sure. That's I don't know what he's doing here, but okay.
Yeah, I think Perth's doing a few of those UFC matches these
Right.
days. So lots of random people in Perth, I guess. I guess the next, there's no segue from UFC to
Yeah,
the next
look-
story, to be fair.
We're just winging this one. Yeah.
But the story that I want to touch on this week are the layoffs that are everywhere, essentially, from any tech companies that you name, like Spotify, Alphabet, Meta. Everyone's just laying off huge number of employees. Almost, I think it's the first few weeks of the year, and the numbers have been quite high. So, starting off, Spotify said that they'll cut about 6%, which is about 10,000 employees. And basically Daniel Ek, who's the CEO, said that he was too ambitious in investing ahead of the revenue growth, and now basically they'll have to cut back. And that seems to be the same story for everyone. So Alphabet said it shed 12,000 jobs, Microsoft up to 10,000 employees, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. Amazon's also planned to cut more than 18,000 jobs, and cited the uncertain economy and rapid hiring during the pandemic, because obviously a lot of these companies that we talk about grew a lot during the pandemic times as well. And Meta in November, of course, they said that they cut 13% of their workforce. Now with Microsoft, though, they recently confirmed that it'll be cutting the 5% of its workforce globally, but a lot of it seems to be coming from its extended reality operations. So that's the XR team. So much so that closing down or significantly scaling back a number of the projects, including the entirety of the HoloLens headset. So it seems like that side of things with Microsoft's probably taking a backseat. And in fact, we probably won't see it as a competitor in that space anymore.
Right. That's sad because I remember one of the big first mixed reality headsets, or probably the first one, was the HoloLens. Everyone was going crazy about it. I remember I did a video on it. I thought it was the future of computing at that time. This was like 2013, 2014.
Wow.
Maybe it was
It's 10 years ago.
maybe a bit later.
Okay.
But it really seemed like if anyone was going to do this, it was Microsoft. Before that, there was no Meta. At that stage, there was no Meta or any other players. So, apart from VR, I'm talking about mixed reality. So, it was very interesting to see what Microsoft was doing at that time. Actually, this is a side point. Do you remember that other company, Magic Leap? Do you remember them?
It just rings a bell briefly.
Okay. So everyone was talking about HoloLens and Magic Leap, and I don't know what happened to Magic Leap, and now HoloLens is going as well. So yeah, it's quite sad. But I think it's probably one of those moonshot projects for Microsoft, and it's a risk that they're going to have to take, and they may not see a return on that. So I think in this economic climate, they're just saying we don't want to take that risk anymore. So it makes sense, but it's a bit sad.
Just on the Magic Leap situation. So apparently they're still in business, and they've returned with a new AR enterprise headset priced at $5,000. And this is from October 2022. So it seems like they're still around and doing the thing, but
The hype is way gone.
especially at that price point. I don't know. We'll have to dig deeper. But I guess the tech layoffs, I don't know if it's a symptom of what's to come, or a sign of what's to come, or it is the end point of what it's been brewing up to be over the last year or so. To me, it feels like it's a sign of what's more to come in the next year or so.
Yeah. Of course, once again, this all just relates to interest rates. I think a lot of the growth that we're seeing from the pandemic, so it was kind of this mechanism that happened. So, for the longest time, interest rates have been very low. We got a whole bunch of rapid growth, but malinvestment, riskier things went nuts, and then companies starting to get a lot of, investment and traction, so they started hiring staff. But now when interest rates are higher, debt is harder to service, and also I guess during the pandemic, there's a lot of stimulus and people invested in all these stocks, but then now, that's kind of gone away. And when the interest rates have risen and things have kind of come down, it's turned into this thing where the tide's kind of gone away. And then everyone's like, oh, wait, nothing's as good as we thought. Consumers aren't as strong as we thought they were. We have too much expenditure and we need more revenue, etc. So yeah, everyone's just cutting at the same time. And I think it's just going to be a trend that continues for a while. I don't think it was sustainable to have companies growing so quickly and to such a degree. I think it's just the natural process of the cycle.
That's one thing I've always hated or disliked about the whole startup culture is just this kamikaze kind of way of doing things, just breaking walls and building stuff and not caring about bottom line. And
who said it? Build fast and break things.
I think it was Travis Kalanick, if I'm not mistaken, of Uber, or could be pretty much anyone. Honestly, could be Zuckerberg, could be Steve Jobs, but it's probably one of those three, if I'm not mistaken. Right. But that mentality of startups is what sees such huge growth, and then also sees when things aren't panning out, especially in the last 2 years where things have been so unpredictable that it ultimately the people who pay off are people within the company, I guess disposable with their roles in these companies, right? So it's sad and frustrating, but at the same time, I don't know what to do as an individual.
Well, the thing is, like, you shouldn't really be sad, because I think I saw a CNBC video, and they're talking about all these tech layoffs, and it turns out I think 80% find a new job within the next couple of months. So it's like that, they're still in high demand, these skilled workers.
I mean, where though, in terms of like you usually say, if one company wasn't doing well, they would use easily within. It's almost like a Silicon Valley kind of network, right? So if somebody loses a job at Amazon with the resume, they can easily find a job in, I don't know, in Microsoft. Yeah, it's not Microsoft, it's in Google, but
it's not like that's the whole pie. There's like heaps of other companies that would be smaller, maybe less pay, whatever, but it's still that there's work to be had out there, I think. So
yeah, I just feel this time that probably isn't the case as much as it used to be because of, I guess, just the way the world is going, right? With the potential recession, interest rates, as you mentioned, like this overall economic impact that we're seeing today. So
I think it might be like lemmings, where I don't know why that was the first analogy that came to my mind, but they kind of jump out into another company, but then the whole like sector kind of has a recession. So
right.
I think this is just like that frothing period before we actually see the big dip. So I do believe that it's not the worst thing in the world for a lot of these workers, but it's definitely not nice. So I think it's just the trend that's going to continue.
Yeah, and I guess generally you do get paid as severance, if I'm not mistaken, if you're laid off. I guess obviously it depends on the terms and how long you stayed with the company and things of that sort. But I guess it also depends on individual companies and their individual contracts, and that should give some of these workers a little bit of buffer. But again, not something you want to see or deal with.
Yeah, of course.
Especially some of the CEOs, the way they kind of communicate these stories.
What, Zoom meetings firing people.
Now, just yesterday, I think I forget who it was, but a Twitter email, an email within Twitter was kind of being circulated around, and I think it was about the Alphabet. It was a letter from one of the shareholders to maybe Sundar, if I'm not mistaken, but it was reached to the Alphabet for sure. And just the way that person was explaining, so it was like a higher up trying to say that why they should shed more people and this should be the norm for the next few quarters. But it just, you can tell that it is just not a numbers game for these higher ups within the company.
They literally see it as expenditure. It's like, if we cut this many, that's why the stock prices always rise a little bit when they announce job losses. Because it's like, hey, like we're making, like now our bottom line is going to look a little bit better because we don't have to pay as many people. But that's, I think finance and economics doesn't mix well with humanity sometimes. No. So
sometimes
so I think that's just the way the system functions. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens if there ends up being more competition and basically just kind of competing for more revenue, but by doing things better instead of whatever they've been doing the past few years. So yeah, hopefully it's good for the consumer in the end. Maybe they're just gonna have to wake up a bit. Maybe Apple gets into AI and we have a MacBook that talks to us. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I mean, I guess where people also kind of feel hard done by is then after all these layoffs, they see, Microsoft, and this is the next news, is that they have invested, or they're investing $10 billion into OpenAI. And essentially, obviously, we know that they already had a stake in the company, and now they're on it to expand it. But $10 billion, that's
a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but for the system that OpenAI is promising,
Yeah.
that might be worth it. I think I think this may be one of the best purchases or like stakes that Microsoft has ever invested.
What's
A value that you're going to give it? Well,
No. But more so, my question was, these purchases that we've seen by tech giants, where they either acquire or invest in. I think we spoke about Meta's WhatsApp and Instagram. Instagram specifically being one of the best decisions that Meta took at that time. Would you say that that's one of your favorite or like the best purchases out there in terms of the tech world, or are there other examples that you can think of?
oh yeah. So are you saying what is the best purchase of all time for a tech company?
Yeah,
Okay.
for you personally, or one that you consider.
I would say Apple's purchase of the technology of Fingerworks was the best purchase of all time. So Fingerworks was a small, I guess, started by this guy who had a disability, and it was kind of like the multi-touch interface. So he kind of figured that all out because of his disability. It was like a wrist issue, so it helped him. And yeah, he made this little, I guess it was like a kind of like a interface for a computer, but it was like multi-touch, etc. So Apple basically hired this guy. His name was Wayne Westerman. Bought his company, and that was the essence of the touch interface for the iPhone, and that's the biggest product of all time. So I think that's pretty good.
Cool. So I guess where do you see ChatGPT now in terms of growth? Like obviously we spoke about the last time around their goal to get premium subscriptions and then expanding in other areas, but a $10 million investment will obviously will come with some intentions. Do you have any, I guess, foresight into this at all?
Well, to be honest, I think they're just kind of saying, hey, there's a rocket ship taking off. We want to get on this ride. I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, Microsoft has Windows, which is huge. They have a lot of services that could benefit from this technology. So I think there's just going to be a closer affiliation with the symbiosis of the two companies. So essentially it's just going to turn into lots of integration that kind of sets Microsoft products ahead of everyone else. So I reckon they'll have smart under the hood integration that you don't really realize is happening, but AI is working and making these products much more productive than the competition. I think that's the way Microsoft's viewing it. But what they actually do with OpenAI and their technology, apart from obviously being integration and DALL-E 2 into some apps, I'm not sure. But I think it's one of those things where it's like it's going to be big, but you just don't know how. What about you? What do you think?
I feel it's like Microsoft could potentially surpass Google with this purchase in the next maybe 2 to 3 years.
Surpass Google. What do you mean by that?
In terms of the user base in through Bing, for example, through the purchases of the software, and maybe even come up with the hardware that will potentially maybe not a phone, but in the integration within the Surface and things of that sort.
Actually, Nate, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let you finish.
No. But that's about it. I didn't really have much else to
I was going to say, when you just a light bulb went off in my head when you talk about integration. Like, how cool would it be? Hardware integration. How cool would it be if you had a smart speaker that was really cheap, but had like a ChatGPT fully voiced interface. That you could build that for like $50 or $100.
Yeah, I mean,
that would sell like hotcakes. That'd be crazy.
it's like, why isn't there? It's 2023 January, like end of January. Why isn't it out yet?
December 9th was the release of ChatGPT, so it's not that.
And we had the updated version in January 9th.
Should be now.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks already. What are you guys doing? And you shut off so many people. You have enough money to spend on this this wonder product. But yeah, I think that's definitely the way it's going. And I think Microsoft will make others compete for a very, very lucrative product that they're hoping to build with this. And I think there's one thing that's, as I mentioned, is just upping their game with their existing suite of products. But coming up with something unique like that, it's not even unique when you even think about it. It's just basically the next step of the HomePods or the Alexas and things of that sort, right? So, I can't wait.
Yeah, I think that'll be very exciting when that happens. But just on that topic, I'm actually, this might sound a little strange. I'm not a fan of like corporatism or, corporate overlords or whatever. But I think Microsoft is one of the better companies to but have the stake in OpenAI and all this integration, because in terms of their brand image, they're not really seen as a spying company or someone who takes and harvests data, or, they're not like an Amazon who knows your every move, or like a Google. So I guess that's me looking at it. Maybe Microsoft does do some of that shady things, but I don't feel it's as much as these other companies. So I think that's a good.
Yeah, I think it's because of its traditional existence. I think IBM, Microsoft, like these companies come with a lot of legacy. And I think that's why, and when we think of it, we don't think super digital data-driven stuff. We think of mostly analog. Like when I think of Microsoft, the first thing is that Windows logo, right? That was in those, I don't know, just for me, it is.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. It is the Windows logo that when I think of Microsoft. What about you?
When I think of Microsoft, I think of like kind of their modern stuff.
Really?
Like Windows 11 is kind of like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I guess it's had such a big, the change in, Windows 10 and 11 was so drastic for me that's kind of the new image I have of them. And I guess when Sundar took over, that kind of new Microsoft is what I imagine. Yeah. Because I feel like they're a different company from Gates. Of Pichai. Sorry, that's Google.
That's Google.
What's his name?
I can see his face. God.
Satya Nadella.
Satya Nadella.
Man, that was embarrassing. But yeah, I think since he took over, he's really, he was focusing on just unifying everything and making everything good. So I think it's, definitely a different company, obviously from the Bill Gates days and the Steve Ballmer days. They're totally different. I think.
But again, when I think of Microsoft, it's literally the intro music kind of plays in my head. The Windows 96 or was it 98?
95 or 98, which I think I don't know. They're still the
and it's the intro music of that, like, and the Windows logo.
Which one was that? Was that the little like piano?
Yeah, and then has that one note that keeps on blinking.
Yeah, ding ding. Okay, and it has the strings behind it.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right. So that's Microsoft first.
Wow, that's real.
Me.
Yeah, for some reason it's.
So I think that's probably the reason why a lot of people. I'm assuming there are more people like me for whom that kind of resonates, and therefore they think, this is like the pre-internet days where they couldn't spy on us as much. But I guguess the association to Bill Gates is probably, Bill Gates has had a lot of negative kind of rating over the last, I don't know, almost a decade or a few years at least. But I don't think people kind of associate with him with Microsoft anymore. I think he's a separate entity all by himself.
But I guess during the 95, 98 piano dinging days, that was the Bill Gates era. So,
was that the time when he got hit with that pie?
Yeah, around that time.
So even the ratings then, probably wasn't too much in his favor.
Was hated then. I think it was just because he was ruthless in terms of business. He may have a smile on his face, but he would kill you in the business. So anyway, back to OpenAI and this Microsoft investment. Definitely one to keep your eye on. I'm not saying invest, but just keep your eye on it. It'll be very interesting. So, very cool.
Do you think Apple would come up with something that could potentially integrate AI to to really expand their products, or
I think they have to be working on it. So
it's about time, isn't it? Because
it's just in their best interest. So Google obviously is in the most danger, and they called a code red as soon as they saw ChatGPT. But I think every tech company who has the resources and the money to do this kind of thing would be like, hey,
they have their own versions of code red.
Yeah. It's like, hey, we should kind of hurry up here. So I think there will be something coming from Apple, but maybe not, not directly. I'm sure Apple will come out with something, but maybe it'll be built on another existing AI system, because Apple's very slow to move in these kind of things. So once the big explosion happens in something, they'll wait 2 or 3 years and then they'll have something. But I think AI is such a complicated task, because you got to remember with these open language models, for example, you got to make sure they don't say anything offensive. You got to make sure they're very clean and kind of boxed up, and that's kind of hard to do. So Apple may just wait for some company to do that and then tailor it to their own needs for their users.
But have you been seeing those mathematics problems that a lot of people have been giving ChatGPT, and it's just been failing?
Extremely wrong, yeah.
Yeah.
I call that, to me, that the image I get, when it tries to draw multiple people sometimes, as in, DALL-E 2 or something, and then it has like 6 fingers and like a head poking out. That's kind of what's happening, but in the text version. So it's kind of hallucinating these answers. So it's like everything reads well, but it's all just wrong, So the hands and the head that's coming out of the person looks like a head and everything, but it shouldn't be there, So it's kind of interesting to see it do that, and it's almost gives you an insight into not its thought process, but just a little bit of how it works. The failures are sometimes as impressive as the successes. So,
oh wow, that's Dagogo the philosopher coming in with some tech quotes. I mean, look, you obviously got the latest and the greatest Apple product, but haven't been
yet, but
soon. But have you been keeping up with the updates that's come out this week?
Yeah, a little bit. So obviously the M2 Pro and M2 Max versions of Apple's MacBook Pro have just been announced and coming soon. 24th of January in the United States was like today. But essentially it's like a 20 to 30% improvements over the last Pro and Max models, CPU and GPU respectively, and about 1 hour better battery life. Aside from that, most things are the same. So it's just a little bit of a spec bump in the graphics and processing department, and tiny bit more battery. I don't know if it's battery capacity or efficiency, but somehow they squeezed an extra hour out of there. So the general consensus is if you already own an M1 product, don't upgrade. But if you're like me and you've had a
Dell XPS for 7 years,
yes,
8 years now running,
a piling steaming donkey cart for a laptop for the past few years, then this is a good upgrade. So I think that's the long and short of it. It's just like a revision, but a kind of pleasant one to have.
And they didn't really give an indication for anything drastically new coming out or anything of that sort, because one of my prediction for this year was Apple coming up with something really exciting. I don't know what it was, but I think we landed on potentially glasses or even like a headset sort of thing. But it didn't seem like they were.
Well, no, but they didn't even do like a proper release for this, because I think this is just the rumors are saying that this was supposed to come out late last year, October, I think it was, but there was some issues with some pipeline in the production, so they've just pushed it back. So this isn't even the real announcement for this year. So there's got to be something.
Hopefully.
Speaking of announcements, GTA 6, there was not an announcement.
God, you got me excited for no reason.
No, but I was watching some videos talking about how there may be one coming quite soon, because in the previous times they've mentioned GTA 6 ever, outside of the leak, it was tacked onto something about, so like, for example, like Red Dead Redemption, there's supposed to be some expansion pack or something. So they're scaling that back because we're focusing on GTA 6. And then there was another post of a similar nature. But then I can't remember what game it was, but there's something that's going to be updated in some Rockstar game, and it's rumored that they're going to talk about it in that. So apparently GTA 6 is going to be the most impressive, obviously, GTA ever. Biggest maps, most buildings you can enter, different locations. And AI is supposed to be better in terms of driving. There's a whole bunch of different stuff. Apparently, your clothes can fall off. So, like in Red Dead Redemption, when you get punch to something, your hat falls off and you have to
Right.
pick it up. You can do that in
Oh,
GTA
wow.
6 apparently. So this is a game that I am so looking forward to. For me, I have like a finish rate of games of about 50 to 60%.
Mm-hmm.
But every GTA I've just smashed it because I just love it. Like
Yeah, I think the last one actually didn't go as far. GTA 5. I think I felt it was too much for me.
too much.
Yeah, I felt that it was like 3 different characters, 3 different stories just going on, and it was like I just felt it was gonna like suck the time out of me like nothing else. But the one before that,
GTA 4 was a masterpiece.
it was that Russian dude. Was
Nico
it?
Bellic.
That's
Let's
right.
go bowling, Nico.
Such a good game. Such a good game. I loved. I loved that game. And of course, the ones before that. Did you play the GTA 1, like the top down?
Maybe once. In
I
my
have
life,
I
a
have memories
vague
playing
memory.
that. Yeah. I have vague memories of playing that. It was it's GTA maybe 3, wasn't it?
No,
GTA
1. That was 1.
Yeah, because GTA 2 would be Vice City.
No.
3 Vice City?
No.
No?
There was GTA 1,
Yep.
which I think was top down. GTA 2 was also top down.
That's
GTA
right.
3 was
3
in
was
3D, and then Vice City was after that. So-
Okay, got it. Yeah, I mean, I think the Vice City was the first one that I played very like religiously.
Yeah. Same with, actually, wait. What was the one in LA set in 92?
Was that Vice City?
No, that was like 80s Miami. San Andreas.
And San Andreas,
Yeah.
of course, that one. Oh, how could I forget?
Yeah,
San
so I
Andreas?
think, was San Andreas
Grove
before
Street.
Vice City or after? I'm not sure.
After San Andreas was after, so it was Vice City, San Andreas, and then Nico
4,
Bellic. Yeah.
Yeah, so GTA 6, like I just hope, I've been seeing so many like little aspects of AI and other breaking technologies that are really doing some crazy stuff in gaming, whether it's like graphics or whether it's the way characters behave or character modeling or faces. But it just seems like it's almost at the wrong time if Rockstar's doing their stuff in-house. It's almost like if they wait another 6 months, then their game could be like quite a bit better. But I'm sure they've got a lot of money and they've researched this stuff themselves and have their own in-house systems. But I just feel like we're at that tipping point where you may need less resources to do more. So it'll be interesting. Well, regardless, I think when the game comes out, it'll be great.
How much realism is too much in a game? Like say your hat's falling off, your clothes falling off, all that kind of stuff. Because I feel if there's if it's 100% realistic to what real life is, I think it gets boring and it gets too frustrating to play.
Do you remember Heavy Rain?
As in like,
It was a PlayStation exclusive for the
a
PlayStation
game.
3.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, it was kind of like that. You had to do
because
everything.
we're having summer here, so it's like
No, you had to do everything manually and to be like to immerse the realism, and it kind of got a bit tedious.
Yeah.
But I think there's a balance to be struck where you can do realistic things but still make the mechanics fun. And I think that's where the engineers at Rockstar, the game engineers, have to look at mechanics and how you can make it addictive. So it's like the simple menial stuff, you can make that fun just by being innovative with the controls. So if you're finding a game boring because of its realism, I think that's because the mechanic isn't quite right. So
Right.
that's what I'd say.
on the point of games, I don't know if you've seen the Last of Us debut on HBO.
No, but I'm going to have a trial version of Binge, which is a streaming service in Australia,
Yes.
by the way, so I can just watch it and then cancel it.
Great. While you're on it, make sure you watch Succession. Is
that on Binge as well?
It's on Binge.
So is
yeah.
Binge like the HBO for Australia?
Yes.
Oh,
That's where you can get Game of Thrones and all the HBO shows.
right.
So I might have to get Binge as well if I want to watch Lotus.
did you end up watching The Last of Us?
No, I haven't
Okay.
played that either. So, but the reason why I bring this up is because the games, the sales of the games have spiked by more than 200% since the show came out.
Smart.
Yeah, so I was gonna say like the whole idea of content complementing games, then games complementing content. I don't know how much a game could complement content itself, but
Well, right, compliment. But I guess the game led to the content being popular.
of course. But then also the content is now pulling the game sales up as well.
which is really cool.
It's almost like book and movies, right?
Yeah, because a lot of the time you kind of have to, if you really love a franchise, a gaming franchise, you have to be quite worried when they say they're going to do a live action
Yes.
adaptation of it. So it was good to see the reviews that it was like just a good standalone series. Well, not series, it's just a one thing, is it?
I think it's a series.
It's going to be a series.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, I was hearing that some critics were calling it like a new genre of
Oh, wow.
of movie or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
because sorry, go on.
oh, I was just gonna say I don't know what that means. I haven't seen it, but that's interesting.
Because I remember watching a YouTube video of just The Last of Us cutscenes. It was like 2 hours long. Somebody made it into like a whole movie kind of
guess
scenario,
you could.
and I remember watching the entire thing, and it was really well made.
So you basically know the whole story.
I know the whole story without playing the game, so in some ways I don't even need to watch
Right.
the live action.
This kind of makes me want to go back and play it again. I think the first Last of Us is the only game we've ever played twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because Last of Us 2 wasn't that good from what I remember.
It was controversial.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the technical sense, it was better, actually a lot better. And not the first one wasn't bad. The first one was great, but at the technical sense. But the second one was better. But I think the storyline, I can't spoil it because you might play it. Right.
But the game?
Will you?
I won't, but there are listeners in who
Yeah,
might. But
okay.
I guess spoiler alert for the next 30 seconds for the
just
game.
Turn it off.
Yeah.
Turn it off. Well, basically, in the first game, you're playing as the father figure, Joel. He's like the main character of the whole thing, right? And Ellie, I guess. Well, yeah, Ellie as well. But what they did was they showed the trailer of the second one, and Joel was in it, so you think you're going to be playing as him and Ellie again and whatever. But then, within the first bit of the game, they kill him. And then everyone's just like, what? And then you end up playing as this person that that kind of comes into the storyline in the second game, but you don't really have a connection with. So it's just like, so I think that was the main thing.
It's like Game of Thrones approach.
I haven't watched the Game of Thrones, but maybe.
God. Okay.
Yeah, but so it was a bit annoying, but I still enjoyed the game. Like, I think a lot of people got annoyed because they saw the leaks online before they played, so they knew that it was going to be ruined. But I managed to avoid that. So I just kept out off the internet just before I bought it, and I still ended up enjoying it. So, yeah.
Right. Well, as much as structure of podcast goes, this has gone really off rails from a tech podcast.
Right.
But I bring that up because in the last podcast, a lot of comments about, we asked people like if they want structures or not. A lot of people like, no, we like you talking about casual stuff. So hopefully this wasn't too much of a sway.
We'll go to the more extreme. Well, the more podcasts we do, the more casual we'll get until we're talking about what we had for breakfast.
That's right. And it'll just become Good Mythical Morning.
Yes.
But I guess that's the end of the show for today. And it was a short one in comparison, but that's only because it was only a few days between. So.
Yeah, there's only so much in a week, But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll catch you again soon. Cheers.